What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 82 of Reezy Talks, the Reezy Resells show, whatever you want to call it. I'm super excited to have Alex Banayan back on the show. He was on the show maybe 15 episodes or so ago, but
Yeah,
yeah. So what's up, Alex? How are you, man?
I am great. It's good. We've been texting, but it's good to see you
Yeah.
at least on screen.
Yeah, it was the weirdest thing. And I don't want to waste a lot of time. So if you don't know who Alex is, go check out the other episode, or we can do like a few minute thing if you want. But it's cool to connect with you again. And we had like a little 7 degrees of separation connection recently through Chris Baca, you did a
Right.
podcast with, because you
Yeah,
guys.
thanks to you.
Yeah. I don't even know how stuff like that happens.
Oh, I
You
actually
guys,
know how that happened.
you guys,
I do know. I do know. You're the one who told me about him, but he heard about me through another friend, Matt, who has a podcast called Ground Up, which is a great podcast.
right, Matt Diavella, right?
Correct.
Yeah, he also has a really successful YouTube channel as well.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I was like, wait, what? And I was like, no, I think I could hook you guys up. And so it's always cool to be able to link up, like-minded people so that everyone can just spread their gift.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much.
So, and a quick backstory, I met Alex on Gary V's show. So we're both Gary V
That was fun.
certified, if that
That was
matters.
really fun.
Oh, dude, how's his energy though? You know what I mean? Like, have you been around people like that a lot? I mean, I guess maybe you have, right? Because your book, the story, like,
He's amazing because his energy on camera versus off camera is very different.
yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like he's pretty much the same, but he definitely, like, I remember as soon as it was like we stopped recording, he kind of like shut down for a second. You know what I mean? He was like,
Yeah,
and then he's like pulled his phone out and started banging it out, and instantly, like without hesitation, we haven't even like fully stood up yet, But man, when I was in his presence, it's hard, you have to like really push your thoughts out to get them on the table, because he wants the conversation to go so perfect, and he sees where it's going, and it's like he thinks if you're not going to be interesting, like he's going to just talk over you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, he's incredible, and I couldn't be more grateful for him.
Yeah.
And that's how I met you, so I'm double grateful.
Dude, people are out here changing people's lives, and it's amazing. I was talking to a friend of mine who got inspired by me, and of course I wouldn't have done it if I wouldn't have found a copy of Gary V's book. So it's like Gary had to write the book, then another guy had to donate the book to where I found it when I was working with books. It's just weird. It's the what's it called? The butterfly effect, or what? The ripple effect, right?
Ripple
like
effect.
every little thing you do, whether you think about it or not, like literally empires are built off of some decision you made that you didn't even think of.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, insane. So to frame this episode a little bit, guys, basically, Alex is an amazing public speaker, and he also wrote an amazing book, The Third Door Book. So check that out. Check out his journey. He hacked The Price is Right, and if you're a hustler, I know you love The Price is Right. So you're gonna have to go listen to the other one to get all the story. But I watched one of Alex's talks recently. It was suggested on YouTube, and I just sat there and listened to the whole thing. And it was very powerful. It's a large audience. You left the stage. You were walking through the crowd. And I was like, man, I want to be good like that guy. And I was like, wait a minute. I have this guy's number. Let me shoot him a text real quick. I was like, hey, Alex, like, what's the key to public speaking? Like, how'd you get so good? And he was like, dude, that's a great idea for a show. Let's record it. And so here we are.
I love it, man. Thank you again. It's a very kind compliment.
No,
it's something that, is not only one of my biggest focuses in my life, it's also one of the most fulfilling. So I'm excited to talk about it.
yeah, it's just, there's something about it. When you're very skilled with your words, you can just like to describe it. I'm like, you could say almost nothing, but yet feel like you left an impact on people or make people feel, you know what I mean? Like the way, just go to proof that the way you deliver the words, is everything. And so obviously when you're delivering meaningful stuff and you're also good at delivering it, it's just super more impactful, because the opposite is true. You could have a great message, but you're, stammering. There's a lot of ands, there's a lot of buts. You're not,
Right.
doing the things that you're going to hopefully teach me how to do here. So yeah, how does one become a great public speaker?
Well, I'm curious for you what challenges you face so we can sort of dive into those.
Okay, so
Or if
here,
you want, I can give some context
no,
on how I got into it.
yeah, we can do a little bit of both, but I'll tell you where I have problems because I'm one of those guys that's really good at winging it. I can do live videos all day, like let people call in. I don't care what they ask. Like it'll be
Yeah.
great. Let's do it. But live on stage is a little bit different, especially when, for example, I just spoke in Atlanta. I was speaking in the smaller room. I was the first. So the setup was like a big ballroom with a couple big speakers. And then after that, they split it into two rooms, one of which was smaller. And the other, less important people went into the smaller one. And the big names got to go in the big room or whatever. Not less important, but whatever. And so I just happened to be the first person to speak in the small room after lunch. And so there was like technical difficulties that happened, right? Because they had just set up this room, it's a new projector, and everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong while I was on stage, and it royally messed me up, including while I was scrambling, there's a guy in the back going 5 minutes, and I'm not even halfway through my presentation. And so, yeah, it ended and whatever. People said it was good, but like I felt terrible. And it just revealed to me the areas that I was very weak in, which is, I'm just like, how could have I had dealt with that better? Or I just don't know. I just know I didn't feel as impactful as I could have been because I didn't dominate the room. And part of it was because I was distracted by these little things like I couldn't see they were projecting onto this little board and I couldn't even see it because the angle. And then I was like, hey, get rid of that. Let's just do it to the wall. But point being is I kind of had a panic attack and anxiety. And so that's kind of my thing, but also just planning how you're going to do it. Because like I said, I'm like the guy that likes to wing it. But if you're trying to cover, that's great in a conversation or whatever. But when you're the main person for 40 minutes to an hour, you need to have some train tracks to follow.
Exactly. Okay, I love that. That's some good meat that we can tackle. And to give everyone some context of how I got into this position, you and I were just talking about this, that for the past 8 years, I've been obsessively studying success. I've spent, thousands of hours researching, going through hundreds of biographies, and more importantly, sitting down one-on-one and asking questions to the people I was dying to get answers from. So for business, I spoke to Bill Gates, music, Lady Gaga, science, Jane Goodall, poetry, Maya Angelou, Jessica Alba, Quincy Jones, Tim Ferriss, Tony Hsieh, Larry King. It's been this really unbelievable journey. And this 8-year quest, the adventures and lessons learned are all in the book that just came out, The Third Door, which thankfully became a national bestseller. My mom is very happy about it. So I'm very grateful that, this, not only did this journey happen, but it's out in the world now. And one of the biggest things that has happened in this past year since the book launch is my speaking career has taken off, which I'm very grateful for. And although I've been public speaking for the past 8 years professionally, just the way the market works, when a book takes off, everything else, rising tides lift all ships, it all, goes on up. So I've been speaking again, fairly consistently and professionally for the past 7 or 8 years. But I would say in the past 10 months, I've done about 100 engagements.
Wow.
So it's been my full time focus.
That's insane. 100 engagements. So 10 engagements a month. You've been on a plane a lot, quite often.
Yeah. And, some weeks, I remember during book launch, there was this 1 week it felt like the Iron Man. It was like the hardest thing I've ever done because on day one, pretty much in 4 days, on day one, I was in Boston and I had a keynote speech in the morning at one company, a keynote speech in the afternoon at a conference put on by Forbes magazine. And then in the evening, a keynote speech at a private event. Went on a plane the next morning at 4:00 in the morning, New York City, keynote speech in the morning, keynote speech in the afternoon, keynote speak at night. The next morning, plane at 6 a.m. to Chicago. a 3-hour keynote speech, which is much harder to do than a 1 hour.
3 hours is insane. How do you?
And then
I feel like okay, well, hold on.
And by the way, you have to remember, there's not much sleep here either because I'm waking up at 4 a.m. for these flights.
That's insane.
And
But
then the next day, flying to Dallas to do a live TV interview for an hour and a half.
Alex wants it. You can tell.
Those 4 days, it sort of felt like, not only are you like sprinting a marathon, you're like almost have to like archery, like take your bow and arrow and hit this bullseye, and you just have to hit it perfectly. But you don't even have time to see it. You just are sprinting to the next one. That's what that week was like.
Wow. Let's go back real quick. 3-hour keynote. I feel like I would have to like build a workshop into that. I'd be like, all right, guys, well, this is the part where we pull out our pencils. This is going to take 30 minutes.
Right, exactly. For me, what I'm very grateful for is because I've been doing this for so long, and because I have different speeches too.
Right.
So, I have one keynote topic that's about exponential success. I have another keynote topic about workplace culture, another keynote topic about millennial trends that'll impact the next 30 years of business.
So when you say keynote topic, what does that mean? Is that a loose speech that's not the same exact speech every time? Or because this interests me, because sometimes I worry and about, what do you talk about? Because at first I was talking about books, then sometimes I would talk about social media. Now I'm starting to talk about YouTube, or different things. But that's awesome because you're saying you can like plate it up and be like, here's what you could get. This one.
Yeah. So I'll break it down super clearly. This is not only for you, anyone who's thinking about speaking professionally or even want to just speak about things you're passionate about, even if you're not getting paid. And I'll tell you how I do it and how a lot of my friends who are professional speakers do it. So I have 5 keynote topics, and it goes, normally the first keynote topic is the one that's your most popular, and you work your way down. And a keynote topic has to be super specific to, what your expertise is, what you're passionate about, what you care about. And from there, you want your keynote topics to be fairly different. You don't want to do one topic on, flipping books and another topic on flipping DVDs or TVs,
Right. Yeah.
One is about flipping. Another one's, like in your case, one could be about reselling. Another one can be about social media. You want them to be fairly different. Obviously, there's the through line of your story and your lens on the world, but you want them to be fairly different. So you have these 5 keynote topics, and then each corporation or organization or conference, when they pick one of your keynote topics, you then customize that speech to the organization.
Gotcha.
And again, you're not completely writing a new speech from scratch, but you are learning as much as you can about that company, so you can make sure when you deliver that speech, it feels really custom tailored for them.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you have your speeches that you've delivered, and the more you deliver that same speech, or not, even though it's not the same, you get better at it.
Oh, of course. I would say that's probably the biggest thing. The biggest factor that changes quality is time and practice. And practicing in front of a mirror is nice, but doing, hundreds of, real keynotes in front of real audiences with real stakes definitely changes your performance for the better.
Right. Yeah, because you got to feel out the room. You can't, it just depending on how the audience is or the company, or, when you walk in, is everyone wearing suits, or is everyone, more casual?
Exactly. I like very diverse rooms because that makes me grow as a speaker the most. So, most of my average keynote speech is to a company offsite. So you have a company like Disney or Apple or Nike that might have, 50 employees, 100 employees, 200 employees doing a, department offsite. I think that's probably a sales offsite, something like that would be my most frequent. But I'm doing, I'll give you an example. Next weekend in Los Angeles, I'm doing an event where it's 4,000 people in the LA Convention Center. And then I'm doing another event, this summer where it's in a stadium with 15,000 people.
Amazing.
So that definitely stretches you as a performer, because the way you speak to 100 people is not the way you speak to 10,000 people. And
I never thought, let's talk about that real quick. What is the difference in dynamics? Because I've never even thought about that, but that actually makes perfect sense. Like when you can't see the faces of everyone in the room, you have to speak a certain way.
Yeah. And, Jerry Seinfeld has a great quote. He says, when you're swimming, you're swimming. It doesn't matter if it's the shallow end or the deep end. That's, when people ask him, is there a difference between doing a performance in front of 100 people or 10,000 people? That's his response.
Right.
And what he's talking about is the emotional factor of it. I think what he's forgetting is that the delivery does change a little bit.
Right.
Because if you're, doing a giant keynote speech in front of I did one at the MGM Grand Arena where there's like 5,000 people there. And if you try to make eye contact with the people up in the bleachers, you look lost. So you can't do that.
Right.
Again, for the most part, the speech is pretty much the same, but the nuances are important. You want to make sure, like if you're doing a giant speech, 1,000 or up, you're making eye contact with people in your direct eye vision. So sort of like in the first third of the arena.
Okay.
Because what you don't want to do is speak up to the upper levels, and then it's sort of, you look like you're like lost, on the street.
Right.
So you definitely don't want to do that. And the people on the second and third stories of these, arenas know that the speaker is looking straight ahead. When you go to a musical on Broadway, the actors aren't looking up to the nosebleed section. They're just, they're doing their performance.
Right.
So that's one. A second one is when you're doing a big one in an arena. For me, it feels like riding a bull. Because when you do a keynote in front of 50 or 100 people, it's sort of like riding a horse or riding a pony, where it's like, yeah, you can't just like jump on it and like go off to the races. You get on it, you feel it out, but within like a minute, if I'm in a keynote where it's 100 people, within a minute, I sort of have a grip and a sense of the energy of the room.
Okay.
When it's 10,000 people or 5,000 people, it's literally like riding
a little bit longer.
Because,
you have no idea.
Because it takes a while. The hardest thing, cell phones have really changed public speaking. To me, you are not a masterful public speaker if half the audience is on their phone texting.
Right.
So what you need to do as a speaker, especially if the audience might not know you, if you're, let's say Barack Obama, you come out, you have everyone's attention because of your name.
Right.
And if you're a professional speaker who might not have that, you need, with your presence,
right,
and with your words, to command their attention and put their phone away, especially when it's a group of 5,000 people. That takes really masterful gripping. And that's why it's more like riding a bull.
Yeah, I noticed.
It really takes a minute to...
I noticed that early on because, like, I think it was the second speech that I did. The first one, I think I kind of wasn't hanging out too much in the event, and I kind of just like went in and did it. And then like, because I was super kind of nervous for the first one.
Yeah.
And it was fairly big. My first one was like 300 people or something. And then the second one, it was only like 50 to 100 people, but it was totally different demographic. And I noticed that too. I was like, when I was in the audience, because I sat through a few, and I was like, everyone's on their phone. This guy's boring. That guy's boring. And then I did mine, and I remember vividly being on stage and looking out, and because when it's 100 or 50 people, you can see everyone. And I was like, they're all looking at me. Like, 90, 95 people, they're not on their laptops working,
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I was like, oh, that's a good metric to measure whether you actually we're getting some attention going. So
I would say it's almost like three levels. One level is they're staring at their phone. The next level is they're 100% staring at you. And then like the highest level is not only are they staring at you, but their eyes are like shining.
They're
That's like,
gleaming.
that's when you know you got them, you know?
You're giving them the glow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. So how about interaction with the audience? How do you use that in your speeches at all?
I think it's extremely important, but you don't want to overdo it to the point where it's like, if you agree with me, say yes, like just for the sake of it.
Right.
What you want to do is you want it to be super natural and you want it to be super genuine. So for me, let's say I'm like when I do Q&A,
Right.
it's natural for me to jump off the stage when someone's asking a question, walk over to them, ask them what their question is, because that's just my personality.
Right.
I want to be close and look in their eyes when they're asking their question. You know, it's natural and authentic for me if I'm telling the story of how I hacked The Price is Right. At a certain point, when I talk about, you know, running off the stage at CBS Studio, I'm running off the stage in the keynote. Like
right.
I will use, to me, my presence is not limited to just, you know, 10 square feet on
and you have that story is probably the one you have down more than anything, right? Like you can deliver that story in like 30 seconds if you had to, probably half asleep.
Yeah, I can do it with my eyes closed with a gun to my head. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I'll tell you that's the first thing that got my attention. I was like, "Wait, what? The Price is Right?" Because everybody loves who doesn't love The Price is Right, you know what I mean? And I was like, "Wait, he hacked." I was like, "I got to hear this guy's story," you know? So you're very wise to, you know, that's another thing I think a lot of people don't know is they don't leverage, you know, the right things that they've done because earlier, like we were saying, you know, you can plate up your speeches as different options, but you also have to plate up yourself with the previous things that you've done. You know what I mean? Just like, you know, my appearance on Gary's show is probably one of the biggest things I've ever done, if not the biggest thing. So I have to, you know, I'm trying to get other things and be like, hey, well, you know, I was on Gary's show, you know, like, let's do this, right? So let's talk about some of that, you know, some of the like marketing involved with public speaking. Or do you not market yourself at all? Is it all just word of mouth?
I would say most of it is word of mouth, and I would say a lot of it is people who have read The Third Door or seen, you know, TV interviews on NBC or, you know, something like that, and they're reaching out.
Okay, so let's talk about this because that just made me think of a better angle. What is the grind been like to let people know who you are and what you've done? Because like you said, that's what lined you up to get the thing. They read the book, they heard the interview, and I was following your story one day, and I think you did 3 interviews in one day. Like you said, 3, but I was like, man, he's doing a lot. You know what I mean? So like that is marketing. You know what I mean? And you do a lot of podcasts, right? You're doing one right now.
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things is, you know, knowing your strength and playing to it. So Ryan Holiday is a great writer. You know, he's the author of Ego is the Enemy, and he's a really good writer. And he loves writing. So he writes a lot of articles and columns for, you know, different online publications to promote his books. For me, I love having conversations, you know, really active ones where I can be fully present and, you know, go deep with someone. So podcasts for me are such a natural fit where I can tell stories. And what I love about podcasts is most of them are pretty long form, an hour, sometimes even 2 hours. So I do have the space to go and tell really fun, long narrative stories. And because that's my thing.
Right.
I love long form storytelling, especially out loud. That's why I love, you know, keynote speeches so much. So the first thing I would say is like know your strengths and play to your strengths. You know, it wouldn't make sense if Gary Vaynerchuk had to do, you know, essay writing to promote his books.
Yeah,
that's not his thing. Happen. You know,
no.
Yeah, that's not his thing. So everyone has to play to their strengths. For me, the biggest thing, and I didn't know this until the book launch, because when I was planning the book launch, I sort of had everything lined up. We had, you know, a TV tour, a radio tour, podcast tour, tons of digital press.
When you say we, what does that mean? Do you have a team?
So my publisher is Penguin Random House. So, they have their marketing people and their PR people. I had a book tour manager who was extremely helpful. So it's definitely been a group effort. And I'm so grateful for a lot of people. And also my friends came through.
Awesome.
People are making introductions, and I would say a lot of the podcast.
Did you get a lot of coverage when the book launched through reaching out to people that you had met along the way through making the book?
Yes.
That's
it's been
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's been super helpful, and also people who are in the book like the book. So Jay loved the book and he tweeted about it when it came out. Steve Wozniak loved the book and he tweeted about it when it came out. So those have been super helpful.
That's awesome. Just this is super random and doesn't relate to anything, but I just wanted to thank you for sending those copies of those books out to the people that you gave away on the last episode. And thank you, a special thanks for like the handwritten notes that you put in there. They sent me some pictures. It was like, your boy came through, and I was like, oh man, that's so nice. It's super important. Just the little touches, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I agree. Thank you for saying that.
So, what is some of the hardest things about, public speaking for you? Is it planning? Is it anxiety? Like what are the things that you struggled with?
Fear is a natural part of the public speaking process. And I think a lot of people do a big disservice saying that, be fearless and, walk through the fear. Fear is good. And, it's not true. Fear feels like shit. Nervousness feels like shit. Anxiety feels like shit. What I would recommend to anybody, who feels nervousness or fear or anxiety before giving a speech is remind yourself that this is a natural part of the process and you can still take one thoughtful step forward anyway.
Might as well. That's where all the growth is, right?
That's where all the growth is. And I talk about this a lot. The difference between fearlessness and courage is fearlessness is jumping off of a cliff and not thinking about it. And that's idiotic.
Right.
Courage, on the other hand, is acknowledging your fear, analyzing the consequences, and then deciding you still care so much about it, you're still going to take one thoughtful step forward anyway.
Yeah, which is insane because that's not natural as humans. Like, we don't want to go to the position that is more friction. So it's like, that's kind of what self-improvement is all about. It's like going against your natural inclinations to exist in this less pressure state and be like, no, look, we're going to tough it out and get to the next level.
Yeah. And you know what? A big thing that I've learned is it's less about, I used to try to take that tough it out approach, and it was really hard on me. Because if you're toughing it out over and over and over and over again, you're sort of beating yourself up. And it wasn't until I read this book by a Buddhist nun by the name of Pema Chodron. Her name is Pema Chodron, and the book is called When Things Fall Apart. And she talks about how the best way to work through your fears is to agree with them and give them permission to exist. Sort of thinking, there's another Buddhist writer named Thich Nhat Hanh who talks about almost like having a mental living room, like a living room in your mind. And when your fear or anxiety is popping up, pull up a chair and invite it to take a seat. Because what our instinct is, especially mine, is to try to fight it and push it away. If you agree with your fears and say, yeah, it's pretty normal and it makes a lot of sense to be scared to speak in front of 5,000 people. And then you sit that fear down, you let it exist. And most importantly, you give it the space. And only then can you move forward and take that step anyways. And what I've realized is every single time I've been scared, whether I pushed through it or I didn't, the event happened. The speech happens.
Right.
And what happens after if you're speaking for the first time, you're probably going to be terrified that your fear is going to sabotage you. After you do 30 speeches, you might realize, hey, I'm nervous every time right before I go on. And then within like 30 seconds of stepping onto the stage, I forget about my fear and it goes great.
Pretty much what happens
And,
usually.
And that's the benefit of, speaking for 10 years. You start realizing, oh, the nervousness and the anxiety, like, that's like a little
So basically what you're saying is by like acknowledging your fear and coexisting with it and just like being more aware of it and where it comes from, you learn a little bit more about yourself, and then that in turn helps you be a better public speaker because like you said, you know what's coming, you know how you're going to act. You could say, "Hey, wait a minute, you're just that fear guy." And you just go away in like 30 seconds anyway.
Yeah, let me give you a cup of tea and a blanket so you can relax. I'm gonna go speech anyways, but I'm not mad at you.
Right.
What happens is people fight their fear. They fight. You're not gonna win if you fight an emotion. You're not gonna win.
Yeah, I get it. It makes a lot of sense to approach an emotion from an intellectual standpoint, and like,
from a place of almost loving, of a place of loving kindness.
Right, but which is, I say intellectual because you can only get there by like assessing it and like being calm and analyzing it and then acting, not just acting directly in response to an emotion.
Aggression is not the best response to any emotion.
Wow, that's a super good little nugget right there. I never thought about it like that. So, what are some of your favorite speeches that you've done?
There was one, I remember there was one last year during the book tour that it was the one speech that I walked away from saying, I'll remember this for the rest of my life. It was at a conference called the Powerful You Conference. It was in the Salt Lake City Convention Center. And, it's sort of like Coachella for personal development. So, you have Tom Bilyeu, Lewis Howes, Jay Shetty, Mel Robbins, Brendan Bouchard, you have all these like big names in personal development. And then, my book had just come out. So my name was like sort of small at the bottom of the lineup. And I was just thinking, I don't care if, people don't know who I am. I'm just going to go there and do my best. And I'm just going to be real and be myself. And there was something about choosing to not care about what they thought about me or if they know who I am, and just saying, I'm just going to be myself and then bounce. That energy shift of not needing their approval, right? And just saying, I'm going to go there and just give them, whatever gifts I have to give. I'm going to be me, and I'm not even going to expect a single person to like come up and talk to me. I'm just going to balance and do my thing.
Right.
I'll tell you this, not only was it one of the biggest standing ovations of my speaking career, I went back to do a book signing and I thought maybe there'd be like 10, 15 people there. There was a line of about 500 people.
Wow.
And I was just like, I thought I walked to the wrong table, the wrong booth.
That's like an entire Sharpie, 500 books.
Oh my, this is like 2 Sharpies, man.
Wow, that's awesome. I love it.
What changed for me in that speech was realizing that the difference wasn't the content of the speech. It was my expectation of the speech. I went in there saying, I don't care, I don't care if they know who I am. I sort of abandoned wanting the audience to like me, and I just became my full self and literally went there just to give them value for an hour and bounce. Normally I'm like, did you like it? Did you like it? Did you like it? This time I was like, I'm going to do my thing and, share with you what I have.
How did that change the delivery? Were you more free in the delivery? Is that how?
I was 100% more free. And what happened is I was 100% more present with my emotions. It was also one of the most emotional keynotes I've given. And I think that was only possible because I wasn't trying to get them to like me. I was trying to just be myself. And I know it sounds like so simple, like, be yourself. It sounds like so cheesy.
No, I get it. I get it.
It's sort of like going on a date. You can go on a date hoping, let's say you're a guy who wants to date a girl. There's a huge energy difference between being like, oh, I hope she likes me. I hope she likes me. I hope she likes me, versus it doesn't matter if she likes me or not. I know who I am.
Right.
I know what I've been through. I'm going to be myself. And if this is the right fit for someone I should date, it's going to work out.
I actually really, really love that analogy because I think most people understand that concept from that perspective. Like, you know what I mean? Appearing needy or clingy, that's not how you get women, or a partner or whatever, you know what I mean? Like maybe, but
same for a woman who's trying to attract a man,
right, but there's this something about like taking this position of like power and self-confidence and of like, yeah, whatever, it doesn't even matter. I'm still gonna do me. Then they just come at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a friend of mine who's an amazing keynote speaker. Her name is Esther Perel. She has this great thing. She talks about relationships, romantic relationships. She talks about how the most, attractive energies when it comes to a romantic relationship is not I need you, but I want you. And there's a huge difference between that.
Correct.
And there's a big difference when you're giving a keynote speech between doing I need you to like me and I want to just give you this gift.
Yep.
Like with no expectation. And then you can truly, share what you know.
I love it, man. That is awesome. And that really applies into salesmanship too, because I mean that's really what you're
I don't need this sale. I just want to tell you what I'm doing, and if it works for you, great. If not, all good.
Yep. Yeah. Not holding you hostage based on your decision. And it certainly is not affecting how I feel, you know what I mean? That is great.
100%.
Yeah, kind of like I don't know what you would call it, but I've seen that, it's it's a marketing tactic, appear to care less, but actually it results in getting more business, you know what I mean? Not care less, but we're not as hungry for the business, or we appear less hungry for the business, but then we get all the business.
In a way, it's actually almost you're caring more. You're just not having any expectation over their reaction.
Right.
You don't have any attachment to what they think of you. And by doing that, you actually, weirdly enough, are able to give more. And you're able to help more people if you're not worried about whether they like you or not.
Yep. I feel 100% because I've had, live shows where usually solo, but I'll like go on a rant, maybe inspired by something from the comments. And then I'll hit like a really nuggety thought on the fly. And because I was just like, because of the way I was just either like really happy or really like frustrated with this comment, it just gets delivered with such emotion, that I get comments like for the rest of the day, earlier that thing today, like that one part, that was fire, like, oh, that really, and in my head, I was like, wait, what do you mean? And I was just like, you yelling out loud for a second, but it's because it's the raw emotion, because it's the real you, because it's, the unfiltered, that coming from that area of, hey, this is me, this is going to help you, and if it doesn't, whatever, because that allows you to just fully breathe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
Definitely. So I have a couple more questions, but so in school, when you're learning how to write, they tell you, how to build a story, your hamburger buns, your meat in the middle, put it all together. How do you build your speeches or your outlines for your speeches? Is there a uniform framework that you use? Like, okay, here's always, here's who I am, here's what I've done, walk us through how you would plan a speech or how someone would plan one.
I would say, the first minute is very important to establish why is the audience listening to you? Why is the audience?
So again, basically why you should listen to me.
Yeah, but it's not like like, hi, I'm John so and so, and I am a billionaire. So listen, no, it's not that.
Hi, I'm Alex Banayan, and I hacked The Price is Right.
Right. You know, for it's more about, whether it's a story, sucking people right into a story, or it could just be with your presence, establishing some kind of grip on the crowd.
Okay.
And then the first 5 to 10 minutes, you really are establishing the context and the framework of what people are doing here. So I would say, my first 10 minutes, I'm sort of giving people an overview of how this all came to be, and then I go into the big stories.
Awesome.
So I sort of build it like Lego blocks. You have your opening 30 seconds, your opening 10 minutes, and then your next, 20-minute chunks.
Cool. Do you always do Q&A at the end?
It depends. So I have a trick with Q&A. A lot of events might want to do, 10 minutes of Q&A, 15 minutes of Q&A. I'm either like, I'd rather do either 30 minutes of Q&A or no Q&A.
Right.
Or at the bare minimum 20 minutes. Like, that's the bare minimum. Because to me, the worst thing is like starting a Q&A and only being able to do like 2 questions.
Because they're so fun, right?
It just feels so, you didn't really get into it.
Right.
I love Q&A because it's the ultimate audience connection.
Yes, exactly. I love it too. And yeah, besides the connection, it's just so fun because you have no idea what's coming at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like a game where like you're just throwing stuff at me and I don't know what's gonna come. Is it gonna be like something that I have to really think about? And I've watched my own Q&As before and I'm like, wow, like they almost got me with that one. You know what I mean? Like I had to really muscle through it, but it's definitely the best way to connect with your audience. Have you ever done any like have you done Toastmaster at all?
I haven't. I know about it though, and I think it's great.
Like a public speaking group thing? So a couple people have
I
recommended
know
it to me.
I know a lot of people who are in it who love it, and it's done wonders for them.
Cool. What about like any type of training that you've gone to? Like have you hired any coaches for public speaking?
Not particularly. I do know public speaking coaches who are great and they're friends of mine. I haven't done it. My training has just been doing it for 10 years.
Right.
But there's a great book that I really recommend called Stand Like Lincoln, Talk Like Churchill.
Nice. Got it. We're going to put these in the description for you guys because you did recommend a couple other books earlier as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good one. That has a lot of good tactics in it.
What are you reading right now?
I love Judd Apatow's Sick in the Head.
What's it called? Sick in the Head?
Sick in the Head. And it's pretty much a book of Judd Apatow interviewing the biggest comedians on earth and just talking to them about comedy and life. And to me, it's just like, there's just so much gold in there. And it's just, and I'm just obsessed with comedy right now. So I just love getting inside the head of comedians.
That is awesome. And kind of weird because the last guest on my show was a comedian.
Oh, wow.
Which is weird because everyone on my show is usually in my niche. And like, besides you and a few others, I'm trying to get out there. And so his thing was about, he's been doing stand up for 18 months and the hustle and grind of doing that, which has got to be one of the most ballsy things ever in my, like public speaking is, a little nervous and whatever, but comedy on stage, man, that's another level. That's like a whole different kind of public speaking.
Yeah.
Any other books you recommend right now or podcasts that you're into lately?
I love the Cal Fussman podcast. It's called Big Questions with Cal Fussman.
Ooh, Big Questions with Cal.
Big Questions with Cal Fussman. I love that. Pretty much what I do, funny enough, I'm like podcast agnostic, and I'm like, I'll search guests. So like, I wanted to hear, like, I was just in the mood this past week to hear about Seth Rogen. So I just go to podcast and type in Seth Rogen, and I'll just listen to different podcasts that have him on it.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool thing about podcasts and the way it works, because I've done that before, search people and you're like, oh, he was on that show and that show. And then, you know, just, you know what the vibe is of a certain show, you know? So you're like, oh, this would be
Exactly.
cool. So you
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. So like I just went on a Seth Rogen binge this week, which was really fun. But yeah, I would say those are the biggest things. Like Sick in the Head by Judd Apatow, When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron. Those are like my big books right now.
Awesome. So, summarizing it up here, basically for people who want to get into public speaking, what would you say are like the top 5 things that they should focus on, or the top 5 tips?
I would say, you know, we can sort of break it down into 3 different segments, you know?
Yeah, 3 or 5,
Because
whatever.
let's say the war of public speaking has 3 battles.
Okay.
The battle in your head, the battle on the page, and the battle on the stage. So, you know, you have the number 1, you have the battle in your head. And again, to summarize, we talked about this earlier, your fear is natural and it's okay. Give it permission to exist and take one thoughtful step forward anyways. That's number 1. Number 2, the battle on the page, when you're writing out your speech, remember that the first minute, you need to establish why they're listening to you. And again, it's not about rattling off your credentials. It could be as simple as the opening sentence saying, it was the saddest day of my life. Boom, I'm listening to you. I don't care who you are. I want to hear what you have to say next.
So it's like the clickbait of the speech.
100%.
I love it.
But you're not saying, you know, 10 funny ways puppies are better than cats.
Yeah, no, exactly, no, but just these specific, the open-ended thing. It's like the way I make a YouTube title would be in the best way, not these ones because these are interviews, but other videos would be like blah blah blah, which is all kind of like huh, and then like the next part, which is like you won't believe what happened. You know what I mean? And then people like, based in the context, they're like, I want to know what happened. You know, like
right. It creates curiosity.
Right.
So I'd say when
we rented a
you
boat. You don't know what happened.
Yeah. So, you know, if you want to, you know, whether it's writing your speech or just, you know, mapping it out in your mind, you want to think of it, you know, the opening, why do they care? You know, let's say if it's an hour-long speech, the next 10 minutes, context of how this all came to be, give people a framework to work with. And then think of your big stories and lessons as Lego blocks and stack the Legos perfectly to follow that narrative.
I got it.
So that's the page. And then the final battle is on stage. And I would say the most important thing really is to, and again, it sounds like cheesy, to be authentic and be genuine, but it's a lot harder than you would think. What you want to do is you want to strip away caring about impressing someone or impressing the audience or having them like you. And what you want to do is, how am I going to help them the most in the way that's the most me? So for me, it's about telling stories that change what people believe is possible. It's about, during the Q&A, going into the audience and looking them in the eyes. It's about, even during the book signing, looking at everyone, asking them questions, having personal moments with everyone. How can you, with your gifts, whether it's, you know, Reezy, whether it's Alex, how can you use your gift to help the people in that room? Because that's what makes the best speech.
I love it, man. That is cut clip right there. That was the fire clip of the episode. My man Alex dropping the fire. Man, we got to wrap it up here, but I appreciate having you on the show, man. What's next for you? You got some upcoming speaking events? Are you working on another book? What are you doing?
I got a ton of upcoming speaking events, which I'm really grateful for. Yeah, thankfully the book tour keeps on going, so I'm very happy.
How do you have a thing on your website that shows where your next events are at so people can find you?
I would say Instagram is probably the biggest one.
Okay. Yeah. So
if you want to come along for the ride, I'm just at Alex Banayan on Instagram.
At Alex Banayan on Instagram.
Give me a shout out.
Are you on Twitter too? You're on Twitter too?
I'm on Twitter too. At Alex.
Get you on Twitter. So if you're watching this or listening to this, go give Alex a follow. Hashtag Reezy Ninja. Let him know we sent you. Always cool seeing that happen. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you. I didn't get a chance to ask you what's going down with the Costa Rica trip. You guys doing that?
Oh, we did it, man, and it was crazy.
Oh my God. How was it?
It was crazy because I know we were texting about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty much 1,000 people entered.
Wow. Who ended up
So,
going? Who ended up going? Someone got their life
uh,
changed.
so pretty much what happened, as you know, is Elliot Bisno and I decided to give away a free trip with us to Costa Rica. Well, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, enter here and win a free trip. And then it's like, you have to buy this. We were like, fuck that. Let's
Right.
actually change someone's life in a real, tangible way. So I posted on Instagram, whoever writes the most inspiring comments can come. And Elliot posted the same thing, and 1,000 people entered between Instagram comments and DMs and texts and emails. And Elliot read through all of them, but he couldn't pick one person, so he picked 5.
Wow, what a boss.
And it was just unbelievable. They were such good people. We spent a week in the jungle together. It was crazy.
Man, did anyone document any of that trip? Like you have some vlogs or anything?
Not really. You know, other than some photos here and there, it was like pretty present. You know, no
Yeah.
cell reception in the jungle.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I gotta try that once in a while. Get out of my my addiction. All right, man. Well, thanks for having you on the show. We're gonna do another one of these
Well,
here
thank
in
you.
the future. We should make it a regular thing.
I love it, man. You're the best.
Oh no, you're the best.
Thank you, man.
All right, man.
I'll
Have
take
a
it from
good
there.
day.
I'll take the compliment. Thank you,
Yeah, no, you can win that one. All right, man. Have a good day. Thanks for coming on the show. I'll see you in the future, though.
Yeah.
Later, Alex. Thank you, man.